Congresswoman Sarah Elfreth. I'm so happy to have you here today. I appreciate you taking the time, and I'm looking forward to jumping into it with you.
Me too.
So just before we kick off, I know you are very close by. You're in Maryland, so you get to go back and forth from DC every day, but you're obviously busy. You have a packed schedule. When you have a Sunday where you've got nothing going on and there is nothing on the calendar, you don't have any commitments or engagements, like what is your ideal Sunday, like off the grid?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this because I don't, if I can fight for one day off a week, that's a really good week. We're pretty bad at that though. So one day every 2 weeks is our goal. If I had a Sunday totally free, so I would try to pack in everything I love to do, which is if there's a spot where we can go that has like a nice easy hike, to bring the dog because she loves that. A couple antique stores to hit along the way. Maybe a winery or a brewery that, again, dog friendly. But like there's never a Sunday where you can do all those things. But that would be peak vacation, peak Sunday afternoon.
You have hit on a perfect day for me too, because so my parents live in Asheville, North Carolina.
Love Asheville.
And I was just in Asheville a few weeks ago, and that was the exact day we did. We did a beautiful hike, maybe a little bit longer than I would have wanted to do. We did lunch at a brewery, and we went to this antique place, and my fiance and I have absolutely no room for any furniture, but we found these gorgeous chairs, and we bought them. They are in the attic at my mom's house. We're like, at some point we will come down to North Carolina to get them. What are you getting at an antique store that you like? Is there something you like collect in particular?
I do. I collect a bunch of things. So I collect oyster plates, which is a very Annapolis thing.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
But this is nerdy. It's really hard to get them at a good price in the States at an antique store. Like they're like $200, $300. So my old chair in the state Senate, my budget chair he and I collect them together. And it's much cheaper to get them from France and pay the shipping. And so we just get two of everything and then split them. So his office has the same oyster plates that my office has. It's a kind of a very cute vomity
thing
sometimes
that we do. Like pockets. So I grew up in the Chicago area, but we used to go to Wisconsin a lot growing up. And Wisconsin has all this like really gorgeous old mid-century modern furniture up there because there was a large, Scandinavian population. And it is interesting because as some of those people get older and they pass away, there are estate sales, and you walk in and you find these like incredible pieces of furniture that if you saw them anywhere else or saw them in a city, it'd be thousands of dollars. And it's like these beautiful things for like $200.
That's
so
awesome.
It's great. Another thing I want to ask you about, just like a fun, interesting, I know you have something called Sarah Explains It All. And I know it's a nod to Nickelodeon.
Yeah.
I want you to talk a little bit about what Sarah Explains It All is.
Yeah.
But before we do that, Nickelodeon, like, were you a Nickelodeon kid?
Of course I was.
What were your shows?
I mean, Are You Afraid of the Dark, right? Like I still get scared thinking about one episode, like creepy as hell. Rugrats, obviously.
Yes.
I mean, Ren and Stimpy, that's like an old school one. But my first dog's name.
Cut.
So my first dog's name was Stimpy, even though that was the name of the cat. And don't ask. I mean, this is what makes sense to a 6-year-old.
It doesn't matter.
Right?
Yep.
So
I love that. Okay. We were very much overlap on Rugrats. I kind of like Double Dare 2000, some of that stuff too. Loved it. Are You Afraid of the Dark? Same thing.
Yeah.
I feel like if I watched it as an adult, it would freak me out more than it did as a little kid.
Oh, 100%.
But because we didn't quite know what was going on.
Right.
But I was also, you had like the Nick kids, you had the Disney kids, you had the Cartoon Network kids, and I was always a Nick kid growing up. So, okay, Sarah Explains It All.
Yes.
Tell me what it's about.
So it's like the beginning of this administration and like coinciding with the start of me being in Congress. Deep, dark days, right? I represent 44,000 federal employees in my district. So disproportionately hit by Doge, Elon, all this bullshit. So especially in the first week of the president being sworn in and all of those executive orders came out, there was just so much chaos. And I had a lot of my constituents rightfully kind of directing some of their emotion and anger at me. And we thought long and hard, how do I explain what I can do as a member of Congress? Like, what the Constitution allows me to do in the legislative branch, but also like the House rules. What can I do? How can I stall things? How can I fight back within the confines of the job? And so we kind of, Katie, my comms director's here, and we kind of just started brainstorming, well, what if I just explained it? Like, people feel a lot better when they just are brought in the know. And if you can just like calmly address their concerns, it's helpful. So we just started calling it Sarah Explains It All as a nod to Nickelodeon. And we have like fun pop-ups and stuff. And we tried to license the music. I don't know where we are on that, but
there are like I feel like there are a lot of sites now where you can like license stuff for free. Yeah, exactly.
And so it's just cool because I think It actually kind of started prior to that when we came for orientation in November, right after we won. And I was bringing people along in my orientation journey about like, how do we select an office? Like, how do you get a committee assignment? And people just really like the demystification of this place.
100%.
Because it seems 1,000 miles away, even though it's only 30 miles from my district. And so just explaining things and bringing people in has really worked out well.
I think it's really helpful. It was actually something I talked to Melanie Stansberry recently, and she does something similar where she just like gets on to Facebook and she does a live and she just says like, this is what's going on this week and this is what I can do about it. And these are my limitations. And I think sometimes there is this question for people of like, why aren't you doing more and what can't you do? And I think being able to explain, especially in this moment in time, like here are my limitations and this is what I'm still going to do about it, even within that is helpful.
I mean, people in the beginning days of the chaos were telling me I should personally arrest Elon Musk. And I'm like, well, that's like, I have my pocket constitution. Like, I don't think I can do that. So I think, and listen, emotions aren't rational, right? If my therapist were here, emotions aren't rational.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And I just get to be kind of that conduit for people's emotions. And that's fine. Part of my job is explaining the privilege I do have as a member of Congress, but also what am I doing? What can't I do? And then how can we get out of this in the long run? Too.
Looking a little bit back to your upbringing, you were born in New Jersey, but close to Philadelphia. So do you identify a little more with the Philly side of your personality or like the Jersey side of your personality?
This is like a legitimate bar fight I get into because I'll say I'm from South Jersey outside of Philly and people are like, oh, that's New Jersey. And then I'll say, well, super nerdy fact, my family landed here in 1693 and the oldest street in the country is named for my family, Elfreth Alley in Philadelphia. So like I have a lot of strong feelings about, started in Philly, moved over to South Jersey. It was a wonderful place to grow up. And, if I weren't living in my district now, I would consider moving back. It's a great place for families, right near the Jersey Shore, all these things. And it gives you a certain, like, take no prisoners. I don't stand for bullshit kind of perspective to this job. Like, I'm very polite and very kind and I'm a hugger and all those like good soft things you think about that area of the world. But also, man, if you come for me, like, watch out.
Bar fights, as you said, it's going to happen.
Well, not actual bar fights, but disagreements.
Verbal bar fights, of course. So you were testifying in Annapolis at the age of 19 on, I think, voting rights. Where did that early clarity for public service come from for you?
Yeah, when I love to tell that story, especially to groups of young people like high schoolers and college students. And I'll share it just briefly here because it's irony of ironies is like come full circle. So I was a college student, I think I was a sophomore at Towson, and I was testifying on a bill to make it a little easier to have polling places on college campuses. Before then, you had to vote by mail, which back then you had to have a reason, like you had to justify it. It was contested, or drive home, which just, we know that voting is important and you want to establish that early in people's lives as a habit. And I took the day off of classes, drove to Annapolis, and now Congressman Andy Harris, who's my colleague, was in the state Senate at the time.
The lone Republican from Maryland in the House.
And listen, I'm searching so hard to find something we can work together on. I'm not giving up that fight. But he accused me of attempting voter fraud for trying to vote in the place I only lived 8 or 9 months of the year. And I tell that story to young people because his intention was clearly to kind of like scare me from participating. And when I was in the state Senate and any of my colleagues were assholes to children who were testifying, I pulled them aside and made sure they didn't do that again. Because we want to help, foster people being engaged with their public servants and in public debate. And of course. And so he was trying to scare me. It obviously had the reverse effect. And now I'm here and he and I are colleagues. Which leads me to another question. You interned for Steny Hoyer once upon a time, who, former House Majority Leader, very much a titan of the House. Yes. What was that experience like? Like, how did that shape your political views, and how surreal is it to be peers with him now? It's pretty surreal. I mean, I still call him Mr. Hoyer from time to time, even though we're colleagues and I should just call him Steny. Yeah. It was an incredible experience. I was in graduate school. I was full-time graduate school doing that, working another job. I mean, it shouldn't shock you. I was like a very intense young person. And it was a great experience. But I knew I wanted to go back to the state afterwards. And then I did. I went back and I had the best job in the world at the National Aquarium and then ran for the state Senate. Didn't really ever think I'd come back here. Frankly, I love state politics. I love like getting things done. But there was something about the pull of even deeper public service that brought me back. And now he and I are colleagues, which is great. And I have, a lion of the house who I can turn to. And it's funny, like I'll sit next to him on the floor some days when things are rough and I'll be like, man, this is shitty. And he's like, well, not so dissimilar when Ronald Reagan was president. It's just good to hear that, history repeats itself.
He's seen it all point,
right?
And I'm sure in this moment in time too, it is good to have people who can relate the moment back to other things they've experienced
100%.
And help ground you a little bit in the fact of like, okay, we are going to be able to power through this moment and it's going to be okay.
Exactly.
Do you have any interesting intern stories from your time with him? I will give you it. So this isn't even mine. It's my brother's. My brother interned for Dick Durbin once upon a time back when he was in college. And this, I don't even know if this is the case now, but truly when he was interning, there were like 4 computers for like desktops for 12 interns. And so you had to pick your time that you had to, you had time slots. And so my brother's time slot, for some reason, he was obsessed with finding bad photos of Dick Durbin on the internet and making them the screensavers of all of the computer screens. So like that was his. And all summer long, people kept being like, who was doing this? So it was a great experience for him in general, but that was his intern story.
I did not do that. I mean, I was in his leadership office, which is good and bad. It was bad because I was like the sole group of interns who didn't have to give Capitol tours. So I still know very little about the building, which is a shame because like I'm a history nerd. I want to learn more about the building. I just didn't have to do that as an intern. One of the funniest stories is we had to like prepare for various receptions with different interest groups, and one of them was organized labor. And I come from a union household, so I was really jazzed to help. And you have food, you have alcohol, so we iced down a bunch of beer, and it occurs to someone like a half an hour beforehand that that beer is not union made. And so like the interns had to like take it out of the ice, pat it down, like make sure it didn't skunk, make sure it didn't. So it was just like a really funny
That is
moment.
actually a good intern story though. I had a friend who she interned for Anheuser-Busch one summer, and literally whoever the Bush was that was running at that point, her job was literally to go from bar to bar wherever he was and make sure that they had Bush on the tap.
Oh yeah.
So when he showed up to a bar, like it looked like it was there. So
it's good stuff.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So I know that you also met your now chief of staff when you were interning. How did you get reconnected, and what was it about him that made you feel like you could build a good team and build something, strong together?
He was in the district, not the district, he was in the personal office and I was in the whip's office. So we didn't like sit next to each other too often. But we stayed in contact over the years, and he stayed in the Maryland delegation, working for Steny and then working for Anthony Brown, who was a member. And when I won my primary, he kind of circled back, and we had kept kind of in touch, but not really. We had similar friend circles. And when I was looking for a chief, I was looking for someone who had qualities that I don't have, because I think that's really important. Yeah. Being new to this place. And I had, intern experience here, but I didn't have DC experience. I know state legislature back on my hand, state policy back on my hand. I wanted a chief who had deep DC experience. It was helpful he was a Maryland delegation person. I needed help, like brass tacks as a young person. Like I needed help managing staff. I had a 2-person staff in the state Senate. So like that's not a skill set I possess. So I knew I needed to have a chief who did compensate for that weakness I had. And Jamie had been in, multiple supervisory positions. So all these things kind of worked. And, we definitely balance each other out. I call him like clockwork every morning at 8:15 on my commute in. Like we check in, we gossip, shit talk, all the things, get it out. And we're a really good team.
I mean, I think you said it very well. And I think it's important, like knowing where your weaknesses are and being able to surround yourself with people who complement that and fill in those gaps is so important. And so I'm glad you were able to recognize and do that.
I've seen it gone wrong before. So
or like people who just want to surround themselves with yes people, or people who don't challenge them or any of that. And it's like, it's not, frankly, probably has also led a little bit to the moment we're in too, is a lot of people not surrounding themselves with people who can challenge them on certain things. So you talked a little bit about your time in the Maryland State Senate. What is a bill from your time there that you feel like really defines how you operate as a lawmaker?
I'd like to hope, I think of myself as a legislator's legislator, and I really love the process of legislating, the bringing of diverse viewpoints together, the like hammering out of technical amendments, like how do we get everybody to give to the point where they might have started on completely opposite sides, but I've gotten them both to compromise to the point where we have a really solid piece of legislation. And I was fortunate in 6 years to pass 91 bills, all bipartisanly, more than all of my 187 colleagues in the Senate and in the House. And I loved it. The thing I am proudest of, because I think it was the culmination of that strategy and the culmination of my 6 years there, did a lot of Chesapeake Bay work, which is really important to my district, really important to the economy, culture, all the things of like Mid-Atlantic. And I had spent all 6 years on the Chesapeake Bay Commission, working with colleagues in Virginia and Pennsylvania, listening to the scientists, working with them really closely, figuring out where has government done well in the last 40 years of addressing pollution, and frankly, like where we fucked up and like not done. And we should look ourselves in the mirror and say, like, we can do better. Yeah. And so this culmination kind of came to a head through all of that work, and we called it the whole Watershed Act. And it's super wonky, but it's basically how do we get to the next iteration, the next step in watershed restoration, and the Chesapeake Bay is the largest estuary in the country. So if we can get it done there, we can get it done in Great Lakes, we can get it done in Puget Sound, we can figure this out. It's basically like, how do we as Democrats, because that's the majority what I was in, go bigger, faster, bolder in our restoration work, which means like permitting reform. It means
I was going to ask, like, do you think there are things from that experience that you're like,
100%.
we can pick this up and we can apply it to other issues?
That is my goal. So we're letting it be implemented right now in the Senate in Maryland. So it's they picked our 5 major watersheds. So instead of doing these like tiny, what we called random acts of restoration, a stream restoration project here, a boat launch there, super important work, but it wasn't at all resulting in water quality results that we were hoping for. And we're still hovering around like a C or a D grade. You still can't go swimming in the Chesapeake Bay, less than 48 hours after a rainstorm, right? It's not safe. This is not okay after 40 years and billions of dollars of work. And as Democrats, I'm not always certain we can turn around that failure and like admit to it and say, we've been doing it this way. The thing I hate hearing in government is we've always done it this way or we've never done it that way. Like clearly what we've been doing hasn't resulted in the things we thought. So let's fix it. So it's bigger. We take whole watersheds. We take a whole river. So like, and we call it super wonky, an 8-digit watershed. And then we do 30 or 40 projects. We partner with nonprofits, partner with the local government from the beginning so they have buy-in and they don't hold up the permitting process along the way. We package all of the state funding together. So if you're going to have 25 sources of funding, that's just like a headache of bureaucracy. Let's package everything together. Let's prioritize things like environmental justice and restoration and carbon sequestration and freshwater mussels, like all these cool pieces of projects that cumulatively will add to like better results. And frankly, the whole of it is this should be about the human experience too. Like people have to have a stake and buy into the work that government is asking you to invest in as taxpayers. How do we make the Chesapeake Bay or any watershed in this country swimmable and fishable again? Like how do we create those environments that people can live in and thrive in?
Well, and you're talking about this, like obviously you are a policy wonk. There are things you want to get done. You clearly have priorities and you ran for a very deep blue seat where like the primary at the end of the day is what ends up being the real race. Yeah. When you are in that mode and you are running against fellow Democrats, people who probably have a lot of overlap with you in terms from a policy perspective, what did you do that you felt like set yourself apart that made people say, okay, I'm voting for Sarah over the other slate of candidates? We
really honed in on this idea that I could get shit done. Because I had that experience, reputation, like I had the receipts from the state Senate. And before I even decided to run, I was really nervous because I was wondering if my style, which is reaching across the aisle, being collaborative, like compromising when you need to, I was wondering if that style was antiquated. And so I called Steny. I called Barb Mikulski, who's like a hero of mine, first Democratic woman elected in her own right? She couldn't even wear pants on the Senate floor when she was elected. And I asked them, like, is there still space for that in this Congress? And they said it's few and far between, but we need it. And I felt like I couldn't be on the sidelines and complain about something if I wasn't willing to fix it. And so that was kind of what I sold people on. Like, I can go to DC and try to be a part of the solution, like try to cut through the noise, try to deliver, try to get things done.
Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
I have heard you talk about, especially with recent cuts that are that have been passed that are going to happen in the future. And you talked about, before the big beautiful bill was passed, you talked about the fact that you were trying to humanize those cuts to your Republican colleagues. Obviously it didn't work. I think back to, though, like something like 2017, where John McCain infamously kept the ACA alive with his thumb down vote. And it seemed like back then the humanizing of those cuts actually was able to resonate with the necessary people. What has happened where that doesn't work anymore?
I don't think the story's over, right? I think what's happening in my district, because I have 44,000 federal employees who work at Social Security, who work at NIH, who work at, FDA, name your 3-letter department, right? They're getting fired or downsized. So I'm hearing about it from my constituents, but the repercussions, the reverberations of that lack of staffing, people who can't pick up the phone, process paperwork, get things done, inspect our food, all of these things, that's going to come in waves for the rest of the country and my colleagues. So while I feel it acutely and disproportionately, I don't want to say like just wait, but pretty soon their constituents will not be able to apply for Social Security benefits or get an IRS tax return or feel safe about their drinking water or their food, right? It's going to occur. It's frustrating because it's so obvious to you and I that that's clearly what is going to happen.
Does that feel like something that could result in like backtracking legislation?
I do think so. I think
okay.
like, first of all of this is a pendulum. Like it's gonna swing back.
Yeah.
It can't, but I like to tell my constituents, especially those who are yelling at me that I'm not doing enough, pendulums swing back, but they have to be pushed. Like we have to keep talking about this, and we have to talk about these cuts in a human form, because otherwise we're in DC and we're arguing over numbers and not people's lives. So I'm hoping, listen, I don't wish ill on anybody. I don't want Americans in Mississippi or Texas or
you don't want it to happen in the first place.
I don't want us to not track the national weather trends and people lose their lives because they weren't given an alert in time. Like nobody wants that, but it's going to continue to happen until people realize the actual value of government.
Yeah. On the DC note, and you've only been in DC for several months now.
Months,
yeah, it has been not too long. What has the biggest mindset shift been for you from what I'm guessing was a more closely knit state legislature to the Capitol?
Well, I started as one of 47 in the state Senate. So to move from that to being one of 435 is tough. Now, I think I could probably name more of my Democratic colleagues than most people. Like I'm really trying my best. It's so hard to find Republicans. My staff will say, like, you got to go talk to chair of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, send me a picture. And it's inevitably 10 years old. And the person doesn't look like that anymore. And it's really hard to find a single white guy in a sea of white guys on the other side. So that's been a challenge. I think overall, though, I came from like a super pragmatic space. I came from a committee that was incredibly diplomatic, that was known to get things done and very respectful of each other. And I rarely spoke in committee. All of my work was kind of done behind the scenes. So what I think is really hard to adjust to is the performance pressure that we have, especially in committee, because we each get 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The pressure to like try to go viral
and like plead your case and get something that is going to actually reach people at the end of the day.
Yeah, and you want to reach people, but I'm also legislating. I'm also sincerely asking questions of the witnesses or the bill sponsor, because I want to I am in a better position to argue my position when I understand their motivation and their legislative intent. And that can really only be accomplished through back and forth and questioning in committee. So that's how I was kind of like brought up to do this job.
Yeah.
But the pressure to like instead use your 5 minutes to do a speech and try to go viral. And I get we want to bring people into our work, but I don't think it's healthy for the institution or the republic as a whole.
Because you're talking about pleading a legitimate case versus political theater and trying to find what the middle of that looks like.
Yes. There's still work that has to get done. Yeah.
Question for you, as we think a little bit more about Democrats, the party, the future. What do you think is the most urgent thing Democrats need to reckon with right now in this moment, especially when they're out of power and there's not a ton of legislative power they have.
Democrats in Congress or Democrats like
nationally?
Nationally.
But you can say in Congress too if
can I
you
answer
think
both?
100%.
Okay. So I think what we need to wrap our heads around in Congress, and Leader Jeffries is working on this. I've run and won 3 really tough elections, 2 generals and 1 primary. And people need to feel like we are affirmatively for something. We can't just constantly run against the president. Like, first of all, we've done that a few times and we've lost.
Yeah.
So it's not a winning strategy.
He's not a big enough enemy, clearly, where the slight majority of the country is going to go against him.
Right. So we have to tell people what we are affirmatively for. And I think where we lost a lot of voters last year for many reasons is people just felt for the first time in a long time like the Democrats were not for them and their families. And there's a lot of ways to dissect that. A lot of racism, there's a lot of ways that's not 100% the case. But we have to get back to how are we making people's lives better? What are what's our affirmative agenda is what Leader Jeffrey says. And I think in my district, and I think it's pretty universal, is affordability. And the fact that people who are your my age, like I'm looking at houses for the first time, it is absurd, crazy, right? Yes. Like, and I look at what my parents, it's not even close to being fair anymore. Cost of healthcare, cost of childcare, also not fucking fair, right?
Yeah.
So what are we doing as Democrats about that real crisis?
I know this is overly simplistic, but sometimes I see the stuff that happens. I'm like, is someone keeping track of all of this? Where I think there is a narrative to thread of what we are talking about, which is prioritizing working people and affordability again, and taking some of the cuts that will probably will be happening imminently and say, this cut happened, but we're not just going to restore it to the thing that you were already unhappy with. We're going to make it better. Exactly.
Yes. And part of that is actually kind of back to my whole watershed argument. Mm-hmm. Like, just pretending like the system as it was pre-Doge worked for people, that's not an affirmative agenda, right? Yeah. That's not progress. We have to be able to say X, Y, and Z have been broken for a really long time, and we're not going to be back in people's confidence again until we A, admit that, and B, like, try to work to fix it.
I guess my question for you would be then, what does the communication side of that all look like? Because I think right now it is this question of how do we communicate that to people? And I think one of the most fascinating things I saw after the election was when they, some polling firm blind polled a bunch of people on various Democratic policy positions, and they polled very well. They're high 50s and mid 60s and really strongly. And then when it got attached to a person, it dropped precipitously. Yeah. And so it does feel like there's this like communication problem right
100%.
Now. And it's like,
we're not trusted.
And it's like, how does the party prioritize those right communications to talk about what you're talking about? Because at the end of the day, it's like, is, visibility power to a degree? And if you're not visible, you can't plead your case.
Yeah, I think it has to start in our own districts, and we have to like be accountable to how we are communicating to our own constituents. But then, in my second answer to answer your question,
the national side
is we're going to talk about that. We're going to have an affirmative agenda if it kills me. Like I'm a broken record about it in caucus. But we also have to make a case to the American people that the only thing that matters in 2026 is winning. And you see a headline every day, like intra-party fighting, Democrats are having a crisis. Like every week it's whether it's DNC or a new crisis in the Democratic Party. And I get like people want to write about it, want to cover it. It's clickbait. The only thing that matters is winning. And I, on the campaign trail last year, would listen to this song. My boyfriend's very into hip hop, so he introduced me to it. Called "Win" by J-Rock, and it has a line. And Katie assured me I could curse here, so it's
you're good. Okay. We're not on the radio. You're right. A-okay.
So it's a song called "Win," and it's win, 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 win. Fuck everything else. Win, 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 win. And like, but on the campaign trail, when you're waking up every day and grinding and like taking all kinds of punches, the only thing that matters, fuck everything else, is winning, because we can't do the things that the American people want us to do in the minority. I'm telling you, like constitutionally, House rules cannot do it. So we have to, as leaders of the party, but also like every Democrat in this country, when you're ready to like post something nasty or call your member of Congress or anything. Think about, is this in service of winning, or is this going to further kind of exacerbate the problem? The only thing that matters is winning right now.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I have talked about and struggled with too. It's like, I'm okay. Like, this feels like the right time to have the debates within the party about what the priorities are and what the future should look like. So sometimes when I see those articles too about disarray and blah, and it's been however many months and Democrats are still figuring out, I'm like, that this is the time to do it.
100%.
So,
we should have those conversations. I don't want them to risk people sitting out the next election.
Totally.
That's my point.
Yeah. I think that is where I think I have this question right now too of it seems like there are certain candidates, obviously, for the foreseeable future through the elections, people are talking about Mamdani and this, who's going to run against and who's going to drop out and who's going to go up against him. I guess my question is like, do you feel like the party though almost owes it in this period of time to sit some of those things out and just kind of let voters pick who they want and kind of signal how they feel through those decisions?
I mean, part of leadership is both leading but also listening. And so I think where we stumble is assuming there's this great divide between progressives and pragmatists, right? And I think a lot of it is bullshit and false, because I think there are really good things that progressives have and talk about and prioritize, and really good things pragmatists talk about and prioritize. And to say that one's 100% right or wrong is unrealistic. So I think, listen, like, I don't represent New York, so I don't have an opinion on Mamdani so much as I think he got a lot of stuff right. Like his laser focus on affordability really resonated with people.
It wasn't just like flash, and he had all that, but he was still focused on an issue.
And dynamic communications, which is like something we're trying, and it also was, you can't expect even like a 60-year-old member of Congress to like have the type of dynamic communications he had. So, lessons have to be taken for what they're worth, and comms more than anything has to be authentic to the person communicating. Are there things that he has said and done in his career that I disagree with from a policy position? Of course.
Yeah.
But we should step back as a party and look at, okay, what worked and what is translatable and transferable to other parts of the country. Yeah. So, some things are and some things aren't.
And I think that is the type of, I think you hit on something really important, which is within the party, people can have, it doesn't have to be a monolith. I think we are seeing on the other side the issues with the party
cult
being monolithic. And so I think you're right of people can take benefits from each other across the party and say, okay, I might disagree with them on this position on the far left, but they did this thing really well, and I think I can implement that myself.
And they're not the enemy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. There is a different one out there that we, like you said, they have to win in order to implement what and to reverse some of what you've seen. I
try to tell people, like, we also have this syndrome as Democrats where we just assume we have to agree with 100% of what our elected officials say or do, which is crazy. You don't have that relationship with your fiance or your friends or your parents, right? Like, why do we assume this person I've never met in Congress is going to agree with me 100% of the time?
Yeah.
I like to joke, it's true, my mother doesn't agree with all of my votes, right? Like, that's the person who's supposed to love me above all else. And she doesn't agree sometimes and gives me a hard time for some of my votes. So understanding that it's going to take different candidates in different policy positions to win in different parts of this country. And the only thing that matters is winning and getting to that majority.
So part of that is pulling people back over who left or have switched sides maybe one time. You have talked about having civil conversations with people and with your family who maybe voted for Trump or have voted for other Republicans. And okay, so and you've talked about how you handle those conversations with people. And I would love for you to tell people how you do it, because I think there is this question of like, it's hard right now, especially in this moment, especially as we see some of the effects of the legislation that's passed. I think it's going to be a lot hard for people not to do the gleeful "I told you so" fuck around find out thing that people talk about, and it probably isn't productive for the people you are trying to bring back into the fold. So I'm just curious how you handle those conversations with people.
Yes. So and they wouldn't mind me saying this, my parents are big Trump supporters.
Okay.
So we don't talk about it too much, but I think part of the reason we got to this country, to this place in our country, many factors. One of them is we were taught as kids, I don't know about you, but in South Jersey, I was taught, like, don't talk about politics or religion, even though everybody was Catholic, but that's fine.
Yeah.
And so we became incapable of talking about those hard things. So we don't have the training to do it. And I think what I have been trained to do because I was in the state Senate for so long is ask a lot of questions, right? Like try to understand someone's legitimate perspective based on their experience or why they feel that way. But it takes a lot of questions and genuine curiosity. And I think we're also, as a party, we love to be right. And as human beings, we love to be right.
Yeah.
Republicans love to be right. We could be right or we can win. So are you trying to be right and stand on a soapbox, or are you trying to actually convince this person that they might want to rethink the way they vote the next time? Because those are two very different things.
And when you have those conversations, does it ever feel like it's difficult because now we are sometimes operating in completely different information spheres?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. But what I'm trying to do in Congress is reach across the aisle, not to everybody on the Republican side. There's people that it would
there
be
are
a waste
there are
of
obvious lost causes.
Waste of my time, waste of their
Yes.
time. Not going to do it. But I am trying to, especially on committees where I serve with people or people whose districts look like mine just happen to be Republican. I'm trying to sit down with them, and it takes homework. Like my staff writes me a memo. I understand their entire career experience. I understand if they were in a state legislature too, what they focused on. I know what bills they've filed. And I go in and I'm genuinely trying to find an ally and a friend on something. And I don't assume we're ever going to agree on all of it. If I can find the one thing that we can work together on in Congress, we are much more likely to find 2 or 3 or 4 more things. And then we're much more likely to have dinner together. And then we're much more likely to talk about, oh, hey, are you experiencing, an uptick in calls in your district office from people who can't access their Social Security benefits? Let's talk about that. Like, your constituents also can't get an appointment at VA. Let's talk about that, right? So it's a definite investment of time and a lot of patience. But I don't go into those meetings expecting I'm going to win them over on abortion. No. Am I going to work with them on addressing PTSD in veterans? Yes. Am I going to work with them on addressing domestic violence in the military? Yeah. I have a blue catfish bill, which is an invasive species in Maryland, and folks listening should absolutely order it if you see it on a menu. Please do your part.
The more we fish them out, the better?
Yes, I want all of them out of the bay. I'm partnering with a Republican in Virginia because it's impacting his district as much as it's impacting my district. And it's something we could find common ground on. And we're having the bill hearing next week. And I'm jazzed, right? He and I are not going to agree on a lot. We got this one thing. Let's continue to move the ball forward.
Well, I think you also hit on something where it's not always legislative stuff too. You're talking about that, things that actually help your office function better, or help the actual institution function better, that aren't always pieces of legislation.
And that's fundamentally, as much as I love to legislate, my job is to answer the phone and be there for my constituents on their hardest day, right? Coming here in the car, I got a text from one of my hospitals in the district. They need help on an immigration case for one of their surgeons, right? That is my job. And imagine, I'm just thinking about this now because it just happened. If we can solve that case and we can get a really skilled surgeon to Maryland, that's going to have huge impacts across my constituents. That's a win.
Yeah. Oh, I hope over the next year and a half you're able to continue finding, things to work with Republicans on. You've talked about before about just the fact that our political system and the way it operates operates with or through incrementalism.
Mm-hmm.
How do you balance that idea, or how do you explain that to people in a time where it feels like we're in this slog and it's the next several years are going to be tough, and then there's also going to be a period of time to try and hopefully fix things that have gone wrong? How do you get that that idea of incrementalism across to people who feel this really intense sense of urgency right now?
I'm thinking about this for the first time, but I think maybe the fact that we just experienced the most turmoil in our government over the last 6 months between Doge and Trump, right? So many, not just laws, but norms we've had have been completely blown up. And I think that's a testament to why incrementalism is probably the better route than dictatorship, than cult-like, following of a leader. It's really hard to make progress because it should be hard to prevent. It should be easy to prevent bad policy too. So that's why we have these checks and balances. That's why our framers set the system up the way they did with a bicameral legislature. It's really hard to pass a bill in one chamber, let alone 2, right? It's painful, but it also was meant and designed to stop what is happening. And unfortunately, because we have a rubber stamp Republican Congress who is not take party completely out of it, they are not doing their job our framers wanted them to do. Like Madison would be turning over in his grave right now. Just the pure lack of oversight and accountability and check and balance that they intended. They intended us to be jealous of each other. They intended us to like not like one another, because that sets up friction that is necessary to make sure we don't have dictators.
And have debate.
Right. Debate is healthy.
Yep.
Yes.
There's another thing that's happening right now that I think is interesting, which is Democrats traveling to Republican districts and doing town halls. And I think it's an interesting idea. Mm-hmm. I'm curious what you think about it, especially people look at some of the hard numbers of the future too, and where state populations are moving and what the census is going to look like and how that's going to affect the electoral map. And so in this attempt to start trying to chip away at some of those communities that maybe are like ruby red, do you think that is a good approach to trying to go talk to people in those districts? I
think it's one approach. I think it's going to take a lot. I might get shit for this. I get really frustrated when I go to a rally, and I go to a lot of rallies. But went to this rally, like I thought I gave a great speech, great reception, and I was like, who's coming with me to Virginia? And not a lot of people signed up. And so my point being, rallies are good, town halls are good, but how are we actually activating people in a way that is going to make a difference in the next election? Yeah. So I just want us to stay focused on, again, back to like win, 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 fuck everything else.
Yeah.
How are we organizing our way to winning?
100%. Yeah, it's going to take more than being online. Yeah. It's going to take, it is across the board, top to bottom, as opposed to we're going to find this silver bullet and it's going to solve all of our problems.
Actually, I had a mentor who used to call this a participatory sport, right? Like you cannot be on the sidelines and complain. And it takes more than voting. And I hope that like sets in with people. It's going to take more out of you than just voting on a Tuesday in November. Like you're going to have to dig in and give more, whatever that is. If you're financially able, give money. If you have time, go knock doors. If you know and love people in red states and red districts, like keep working them.
Yeah.
But you got to do more than just vote.
Absolutely. I know you are very busy. You've got a busy vote schedule. I've got two last questions for you, and then we are going to let you get back to what you do best, I guess. So you are obviously productive and confident and type A, and you get like stuff done.
Trying.
You very much come across, and I think your record clearly shows that. When is the last time you felt like completely out of your depth?
Oh, wow. No, I have moments. Like I have moments when I am prepared for a hearing or something. A couple of my colleagues go before me and they do it a totally different way. And I'm sitting there because I'm still new to this institution. I'm like, shit, did I do this wrong?
Yeah.
Yes. And, I have to go back to my North Star. Why did I run? Why did people elect me? I think it was the largest primary in the country last year. Like they had many other choices and like legit contrast choices. Yeah. And they chose me, and based on your first question, like because I was able to pitch, I know how to legislate, I know how to navigate systems, I know how to show up for people on their worst day, if they lost their job at Social Security, if they've been hit by a tornado, if they've experienced gun violence, like I know how to do this. And so I have to just like reset when I have those moments of like legit panic attacks in committee. Like, am I doing this wrong? No, I have to be true and authentic to myself.
100%. And just as you go, it's like there's not one way to do it.
No, we need all kinds of styles too. Yeah.
Last question for you. You obviously you've had a long career already, even at a young age, and you've had obviously very impressive mentors, all of that.
Yeah.
What is a piece of political advice you've gotten that you feel like more young leaders should hear?
Oh, can I squeeze two answers in?
You can absolutely squeeze two answers in. We got a little bit of time.
So, because I've been thinking a lot about this. One, I ran into a young man who was going to run for the state house probably a month ago, and he didn't know who I was, which is fine. I told him, and then he kind of went on the spiel about like what he's going to do when he gets there and all his priorities. And I said, well, like I was there for 6 years, like having a policy conversation. He didn't ask me a single question for about 5 minutes, and I think it's just my advice to young people is I'm gonna reference another hip hop song, but it's like
I love it.
I don't really listen to that.
I don't think people see you and think she's gonna start rattling off hip hop. So
like
I love it.
Totally influenced by my boyfriend in the car on long drives. So it's Kendrick, but it's "Sit Down, Be Humble" because that's like that song was playing in my head when this young man was telling me. But like, be curious. That's if I could put it another way. And I try to explain that to young people. Like that is a life skill if you want to go into politics or anything. Like just genuine curiosity and like trying to understand another person's point of view or trying to seek advice that you don't have or get experience. It's just curiosity and being humble.
Tied into what you said about ask questions.
Ask
like
questions.
That can apply to everything.
Yes, not politics, but everything. And then my mentors many mentors, but is Barbara Mikulski. And, she would always, we have a green card in my office that's based on something she had in her office for 40 years. And one of the things is, it's just kind of some principles, but we can't guarantee an outcome, but we can guarantee an effort. And even on really hard days, recognizing that people are turning to us on their hardest days, or they're legitimately afraid for the future of this country, their family, like we can still be a beacon of hope, or we can at least try for them. And that's what I'm leaning on in this work, because it's been a really rough 7 fucking months. Like, it's been really hard.
It's rough watching it. I can't imagine like being in it every day and having to be like,
I'm not having fun. Like, lobbyists ask me if I'm having fun. I'm like, fuck no. Are you watching this? No. But I am trying, and it's what's keeping my staff and I think, afloat through this chaos is, what can we do to actually improve the lives of people in our district today and hold on to that tangible thing? And
you have to focus on that, the incremental things you can do until you hit the moment where Democrats can start doing things again.
And we can actually have the gavels, have the ball.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, on that optimistic note, Congresswoman Sarah Elfreth from the great state of Maryland, thank you so much for coming on Building the Bench today. I had an amazing time.
It was great.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.